I'm hoping to score at least 5% and 3 and 2% in the states that need a certain percentage in order to be on the ballot the next time around.
No, I
Because
got you, right.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that we've got to spend tens of thousands of dollars sometimes on just one state to get on the ballot. And so if I have a good enough showing, then we can save that next time around.
Yeah. I mean, like with all the violence and stuff going on, do you worry about what will happen on election day or afterwards?
No, we usually, I mean, we have had rough patches before, and we're
Mm-hmm.
certainly in the middle of a rough patch right now. However, I think Americans, for the most part, value the representative democracy that we have, and they value the system we have. So most people are law abiding.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah, well, thank you. A lot of people think there's a big problem with shifting gears here a little bit with dark money in politics. Money comes in through super PACs, and there's lots of powerful organizations in the U.S. who aren't really, they don't disclose where that funding comes from. Do you think that there should be more of a transparency around these sources of funding?
Oh yeah, I think all money that goes into politics is a problem. And a lot of people don't realize that many corporations actually write the laws themselves. They'll write a law, hand it to a congressperson, and then the congressperson introduces it as a bill. So, forget the hidden money that's coming in. Let's just look at the money that's out in the open coming in. And a lot of people are saying the corporations are becoming too strong. Yeah, they are, and they're becoming strong through a Congress who is basically accepting bribes they call them campaign contributions, but there have been many laws that have been written for just one company.
Right. Well, much of the world, they're tuning in to this election because it's a big deal. How do you think the rest of the world sees this election, and who are they rooting for?
I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see the reaction.
Okay, and I just have to ask, I know in politics, language tends to be especially polarizing, but I wanted to ask, how do you feel about defunding the police? I mean, should police have access to tanks and military equipment? Like, is that appropriate? How do you feel
No.
about that?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, let me back up to your last question because
Yeah.
I really didn't answer it very fully. I have been on a few shows with people around the world, and they keep saying the same thing. From over here, from Europe, it looks like there's only 2 people running for president. How is it that there's a third person who's running for president and nobody talks about it? And people have been they don't understand it because there are other countries in Europe and around the world who do have more than 2 parties, and they talk about all the parties, and it's like does not compute. They just don't understand.
Exactly.
But regarding defunding the police, crime is a local issue, and it should be up to the local mayor, police department, city council, voters, taxpayers. I would allow each different jurisdiction to decide how they want to handle their policing. And I would absolutely end giving tanks and tear gas and grenade launchers to the over 8,000 federal, state, and local police forces. Because, look at it from the other way. If you're sitting in, Austin, Texas, or, Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Charleston, West Virginia, just
Right.
pick a city. And they put a referendum on the ballot. Okay, would you like your taxes raised so that our police department can go out and buy a tank? Most people would say, no, I'd rather keep that extra money, maybe go out to a nice dinner or go on a nicer vacation. But what happens is the federal government takes that money from us, then they buy the tanks and tear gas, and then they dangle it in front of the police department. So they're like, hey, do you want a free tank? Well, of course, police departments aren't going to say no. They're going to say, well, yeah, because that's our taxpayer money. We don't want the people in Alabama to get it. So yeah, we're going to take that free tank.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now we've got escalation in the police. So now the police, instead of like the friendly local beat patrol officer, on the cop car was to serve and protect in community and all that. Now they're out there in a soldier, us versus them mentality. And we're getting that because the federal government is getting into where it shouldn't be. The federal government needs to stay out of policing. And I was really dismayed when I saw Joe Biden in his town hall talking about, oh, we need social workers and psychologists, and we're going to have extra police training. I thought, why is the president getting involved with a local issue like policing? The needs of rural Appalachia are much different than downtown New York City. Why are you even doing this?
Yes, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I get it. I know how you feel about government. As far as government intervention goes, how do you think the pandemic in particular would have played out if there was no government intervention?
Oh, well, and that's the biggest mistake that President Trump made, was not getting rid of the FDA obstacles. Because, and when people ask me, why are you running for president? I tell them it's because government is too big, too bossy, too nosy, too intrusive. But the worst part is they usually end up hurting the very people they're trying to help. And that's the case with the FDA. The FDA is supposed to be there to protect us, to make sure that we get safe drugs and so forth. And what they did was they stopped us from getting tested. And if you look, because there were like 40, there were literally dozens of testing kits around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to the FDA and the CDC, we were only allowed to use 2 of them. Meanwhile, other countries around the world, like South Korea, they got ahead in the testing. They were able to get ahead of the curve without any shutdown at all. Meanwhile, we lose tens of millions of jobs because we're all under house arrest instead of being out there working at our jobs.
Right. Okay. All right, we'll just have a couple more questions for you regarding the election. What's one thing you'd like Americans to be thinking about when they go to the ballots this year? We're asking a lot of non-politicians the same question. What do you think they should be having, keeping in their head when they go to the ballots?
Well, I hope what they're thinking about is, I'm an American and I should be able to make my own choices and not have a one-size-fits-all from the federal government. And that's what they're getting from the Democrats and Republicans. And I hope that every American realizes and values the freedom that we have in this country, that we're slowly just turning over to the people in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's one thing you think the media has missed out on covering this year's election?
The fact that there's somebody else on the ballot in all 50 states. And let me mention, as a libertarian, of course, I don't feel entitled. I'm not saying that they're required to cover me. What I'm suggesting is that having a third person on the ballot in all 50 states, where every single American in this country can vote for, and they're not reporting on it, I would say that they're not doing their job very well. And they owe it to their viewers and readers and listeners.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Joe. That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy your rally. Where's your rally today?
Oh gosh, I'm in Minneapolis. We just flew in like an hour ago, so I'm not.
You're pretty jet lagged. I get it.
Well, I don't know offhand the name of the place,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure it's on my website, which is joe20.com, which, by the way, slowed to a halt after the first presidential debate. When people,
it crashed, didn't it?
Well, technically not crashed, but yeah, for all practical purposes, it crashed. So there were so many people after the first debate going, oh my gosh, is there any other choice out there? So
that's awesome.
So they can go to my website and see where I'll be tonight in Minnesota.